Hi guys, and welcome back to the very last episode of part one for the 2025 season of the Business Unboxed podcast with your hosts, Kelly, chartered accountant, and Cory, a business owner. And we thought we would wrap part one up of the season with talking about launching and how everybody has this idea that you have to have the most perfect launch. You've got to launch with potentially like all the products and everything's going to be perfect. You've got to have it organized and all this kind of thing. Now, obviously, you've got to have some degree of organization going into a launch. You've got to have some sort of products, but we are kind of going to, I guess, debunk that in this episode where you don't have to have everything perfect before you launch, and sometimes it's actually better to launch before everything is 100% nailed out and you've waited 12 months after deciding what you're going to do to make final tweaks, because you might get to launch and what the people want is actually different to what you've spent the last 12 months perfecting, and you've spent a lot of money on doing something that you could have just launched 12 months ago, and then you could have perfected it as you were making some money along the journey. So I guess to start off with, a couple of thoughts that I have are, obviously, we have launched a business before in the past, and I guess we weren't as experienced in business back then, and I don't know, I expected to get some sales, even though we didn't really market a whole heap. I don't remember doing a lot of marketing. Did we?
We did some ads. We did Facebook ads. I think I maybe tried Google, maybe not. We definitely did Facebook.
Yeah. So, I guess if you're starting a business and you're a product-based business, you should start with those first. The service and product are a wee bit different. A lot of people start with only a few. So if you have an idea of what your business wants to provide and like product-wise, sometimes it's a good idea, instead of starting with everything that you wanted to, you launch with just a small little handful or a couple of products to test the waters and see if these kinds of products, if your branding, if your image kind of resonates with the audience that you've decided you're going to try and target. Because sometimes you can do all the planning. We've talked about in the episodes before how you do your vision, your mission, and you do what your ideal customer looks like and all that kind of thing, and you think you've got it all figured out, and then you go to launch the product and you don't get sales, and you've got to figure out why. So if you've then spent double, triple, quadruple the amount of money on making an entire range of products, and then the brand, or for whatever reason, doesn't hit the customers like you thought it was going to, you've spent way more money than what you would have had you just launched a small number of products. And I think an example of that, I can't remember exactly how they started, but the family from Australia, I can't remember what their last name is, but Kat and Deja, and can't remember what the other one's name is. It's like a family in Australia. You guys, if you're familiar with like TikTok and Australian influencers, you'll know them. They obviously started a skincare brand, I think it was only like a year or so ago. And they only started, I think, with a couple of products, and now they've worked their way up to having a full box of products. So they have like cleansers and all sorts of things, and they do headbands and whatever. But they tested the waters with just a handful of things. They might have only just picked 3 products to start with. And then as you see if people resonate with that, you slowly can grow the brand with the people. Cory, is that what you would agree in your experiences?
Yeah. Don't overcommit. I think it can be tempting to want to launch with a full. If you're talking product-based business, it can be tempting to want to launch with a full store of products for people to go and select and browse through. But actually, if you just but if that means that you're compromising on quality, or anything, then sometimes it's better just to have one to start off with. If that means that it's going to be better value. You have nicer images, better copywriting, a better store setup, a better product itself. Yeah, start with one, promote it well, talk about your story, talk about behind the scenes, take people on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Successful, then you can grow and invest some of the money into R&D for future products rather than
Exactly.
trying to see if it's going to work.
Exactly. And I think we've also talked about in the past not expecting sales in the first number of months as a business. So going into thinking that you have a perfect launch and you're going to potentially in your head feel like you're going to get a lot of sales, like you've done posting and this and that, and you've got this big range of products and you've put all your time and effort into it, and then come launch, you feel like it's good, but you don't get any sales. Not only is that maybe like that could be like an example of not actually resonating with people and maybe your marketing isn't doing the side of what it is, but also you're brand new. Even though you've been doing posts and engaging with people, unless you have a following prior to that, it's still going to be slow for the sales to come in because nobody really knows what to expect. They can't ask their friends or go online and see reviews of your product or your services because nobody's been there before, nobody's used you before. So
Mm.
don't, even though you feel like you might have had that build up, I mean, a lot of the times we see these quote unquote perfect launches with celebrities or influencers, and they do bring out products and they sell out very quick and they sell a lot of inventory, and then they restock in a very short amount of time and bring out these new products very, very quickly. But you've got to realize that that's not the normal reality of starting a business, especially a product based business, and it's not a normal launch is to sell out everything within like the first day of putting your items up. They already have a following that's dedicated
Mm.
and loyal to them to a certain fault that'll essentially just buy it because they want to try it and review it for other people to see so that they can get views and likes and all sorts. So unless you're in that circumstance where you already do have a following, don't expect to get sales straight off the bat, even if you've done what you think is right with all the marketing and collaborating with people before you launch a product.
Yeah, I think it takes some people can still do that, but you've got to take people on
Yeah.
the journey, a year before you're actually going to launch. You take people, if you're good with the camera, take people on the whole journey, video you trialing samples and getting samples, working with your designer on the packaging, on the branding, get people's input, get them to buy into your brand. So for example, we've just done another range for a client of ours, and they posted the three options we gave them onto social media to get buy-in.
Oh, yeah.
Approved the design today, which was the most popular one, and the one that I also and the one that I liked, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that creates buy-in with the buyer because they feel like they're part of your brand now because they influenced a decision that you're making.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of feel like you've got to be more and more engaged with your audience, which is
Yes.
more like it needs to be through social media or EDMs maybe, to build that up before you launch. Not that you have to do it that way, but
Hmm.
it can make it a bit easier.
Yes, so a great example actually of that, Cory, if people are particularly probably New Zealand, but I don't know where the launch, how far it's going to reach. But if you guys are familiar with the brand Ethique, the owner of that is bringing out a new brand called Incredibles, which has been, I don't know, like 2 years she's been working on this. She shares on LinkedIn all of her posts, the journey, the branding. She has also done multiple taste tests. We actually were lucky enough to go to one of those taste testings on the very, very early days,
Hmm.
and taste test some of them and give feedback. So she had multiple of those where once they got an actual product, they were testing it with people, they were showing the branding, she puts out ideas of, okay, what are our like catchphrase is going to be, and you'll see what people resonate with and what people like the most. And that is a very great example of somebody who's engaging everybody to try and get that buy-in before they launch. I think actually that product might be launching this month. I feel like it's been delayed
Yeah,
a lot of times, but I feel like she's stuck with this one. I feel like May is when she's launching it. But another great example, if you want to go and have a look at the Incredibles, either LinkedIn page or whatever other pages she's on, you can follow that journey of the brand over the, I think, at least 2 years that she's been talking about it and bringing people along.
And Vumi. Vumi is another one. I have
Okay.
their product here. I think they took people on the journey before they launched. When they launched, I think they sold out. And they do a lot of social media stuff, like they're all over Instagram. They do stuff behind the scenes, fun stuff, tell you about decisions that they're making and launch promos. Yeah, it's a very personal brand.
Okay. So I guess we'll switch over to, I guess, how the perfect launch might look for a service-based business now that we've kind of touched on product-based business. And I guess it's different because you're not putting a product out there, right? Like, and to a certain extent, you will perfect your services and what you want to provide to people. But in saying that, like we're saying this entire episode, you don't want to necessarily have everything perfected down to a certain T. Like, I think, Cory, you've probably got examples where you may have put out on your website that you provide this service, this service, and this service. But people will come to you, they'll like what you do, and they'll say, oh, can you offer this? Or do you offer that? Or can you help me with this thing or that thing? And so
Mhm.
don't try and launch with just a small number of things and think that's all I'm going to provide. You've got to have a little bit of fluidity in your approach, because there may be things that you touch on the outer skirts, but you don't want to launch with your website. So I don't feel like you have to include every little thing as well as a flip side of that, because then your website's going to look too messy and people are going to be like overwhelmed with the options. So I think, Cory, I'll let you talk more on this because you've got experience in updating your website and going through that decision process of what do you show and what do you kind of keep for people to inquire about.
Yeah, so I mean, part of it comes down to knowing your niche and not overselling by having too many things and saying, I do everything, therefore you specialize in nothing.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of launching, like it's better to have, even if you like we've talked about our business, about maybe just launching with a couple of services, right? So we
Yes.
launch a couple of services. The key thing is that you have enough information for someone to understand what you do, how you do, and why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
An easy way to contact you, right? If that's all you have to start off with, that's fine, because then they know what you're doing. They can contact you. And to be fair, you don't even need a website to start. Like you can actually do it through social media. You don't even need a website to start. You can, yeah, you can do things without that, but that sometimes for people is the default. But just start off with a couple of, a couple of services, get them looking really well, maybe have their own page and have enough information that people understand. And then as you build on and can talk about more things, then add another one with a different service and a different service until you have the range of services that you want to list on there.
Exactly. And I guess if you are going from doing the job in like an employment situation and then moving into providing that service in your own business, you're going to have to realize that there is a big difference between the two. As an employee, you get given a task. Normally, there's already a process written out of how it needs to go, because people
mm,
before you've written out what it needs to be done, the managers know how it needs to be, like the data needs to flow or whatever it needs to be for your business. In your business, you can do everything the way that you want it to, which means there's a lot more range for you to get confused and bogged down in that detail before you launch. So don't spend too much time refining every little thing and having everything planned out, because
mm,
you'll realize that those processes that you had in your employment were developed over years and years and years of doing the work, refining it, customer feedback, this and that. So you can't expect to then go into something brand new with your own little niche and expect to have all of those predetermined before you even launch. Like, you need to have a process that you're going to follow for a start, but
mm.
not refine it down to the detail until you've really experienced what it's like for you and for your clients, because they're going to be different.
Yeah, just test it. Let it break. Let it frustrate you. Change it. let it test it again, let it break and annoy you, change it, and just keep refining and refining and refining. For every new client, you'll find something different, because every
Yeah.
client, my profession, every job is different. Even though it might be packaging or a label design, you're working with a different client, usually a different type of budget. They have different set of requirements. Some of them are really casual and they love what you do. Some of them are really anal and every little detail. Others want to show me a picture of what they want and me just to do it. So you have this huge range, and you've still got to take that range and bring it back to your process. It takes time to refine.
Exactly. So don't freak out and delay starting because you don't have everything line by line thought out every single little step, because it's going to change as soon as you launch anyway. So don't waste that time. Get in, start learning, and start refining it as you go.
Yeah, so you want to have some way for people to contact you, right? So website's one way. Get some services and some basic information up there. Still needs to look professional. You don't need to go and spend a half day photo shoot or anything crazy, but it still needs to look professional. Have correct professional copywriting, and enough that people understand what you are selling, and a contact form. If you want to do it the social media way, then you don't need a website. You just have to build a professional profile that someone can go and have a look at, probably, and build some rapport with groups or however you want to do it. And then obviously once they make the contact, you probably want to have some sort of CRM, even if it's a spreadsheet to start off with, just with someone's basic information, and then maybe just like a basic list of steps. So when they contact me, it needs to go into the CRM, then I need to send an email, blah, 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 blah. And even if there's like 50 steps there, at least you can go through and follow them until you can start building systems and automating some of that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just launch with what you can and then refine and build as you get the business coming in.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Is there any other final tips for, I guess, the whole non-perfect launch, Cory, that you can give people before we wrap up part one of this season?
Tips. I don't think so. I think the key thing, the more important thing, is to just do it. Just
Yeah.
get it done, put it out there into the world, and then refine from there. We've got chocolate post-its live now. I don't really love this phrase, but I've literally whipped up a Shopify site that took me time. It wasn't a quick process, but took me time. It's not perfect. It's going to be refined and changed over time. And, we've inherited stock and packaging that we want to improve and change over time. But we're not going to go crazy and throw anything away. We'll use what we have. We'll have the site that's functional and it's fine for what it is for now. And then as we build the business back up, we'll change it and refine it.
Exactly. Perfect example.
Almost think of it like this. When you launch, you want to launch with an MVP, right? Minimal viable product.
Yeah.
So whatever you can get away with, try and get away with it. And then you have to earn money to pay for everything else you do. So if you want to change your website or add another service, whether you pay someone or do it yourself, you have to pay your time to do it, right? And so you can't do it until you earn money in the business to make it happen. That's a way maybe of restricting yourself, is that you've got to justify the changes and improvements.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. Okay, so I think we'll wrap this up here. We hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and also part one of this year. Obviously, it's been the first chunk of a season where Cory has been part of it. All obviously other seasons, it's just been me. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the more conversational episodes, I guess, and being able to see things from two different perspectives, and obviously having Cory's expertise for this season so far. And we'll catch you guys. We plan on coming back in September. So we have June, July, and August off. So we'll catch you guys back in September for the start of part 2 of the season.